Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Estate Planning Academy. I'm your host, Gary DeWitt, and this is the internet's most passionate show about estate planning. Today's topic is probate. From last time, if you'll remember, your estate is all the stuff you own. Your probate estate is the stuff you own that must go through probate. If you are single, then likely most of your stuff is subject to probate. If you are married, then only the stuff just in your name is subject to probate generally. There's a lot of definitions in probate, and I want to go through the ones you'll hear most commonly. The executor or executratrix is the male or female person in charge of the will. An administrator or administratrix is the male or female person in charge of administration. An heir is a person legally entitled to property on that person's death and not until. Devisee is a person to whom real estate, that is, real property, is given. A devise means to give somebody real estate in a will. A legatee is a person to whom personal property is given. Remember, personal property is anything but real estate. Probate, the official proving or establishing the validity of the will. After that, following the instructions in the will to distribute property to the devisees and legatees, pay debts, and pay taxes. Administration, management and distribution of the estate if there isn't a will. Administration is subject to strict judicial oversight. Life estate, a lifetime interest in the ownership of real estate. Life tenant, the holder of a life estate. Remainder man, that's who gets the property after a life estate ends. Not everything you own goes through probate. You may have some property that passes outside of probate. Property that is owned jointly with the right of survivorship with somebody else. A lot of times that's married couples. But after the first person passes, there is no longer a right of survivorship to anybody else. So, your estate splits into two parts, the part that goes through probate and the part that passes on outside of probate. Probate concerns the property that must be overseen by the court. Probate is the public, formal, expensive, lengthy, court-supervised process of changing ownership of your property to the next generation, paying your bills, selling your stuff, and more. There are numerous hearings and steps as required by the law. It's a little different if there's a will or not. Technically, probate is the admitting of the will, and if there isn't a will, it is called administration. Probate's lengthy. 6 to 8 months for a short probate. Probably closer to 8 to 10 because of the 6-month advertising and waiting requirement for creditors to respond. That's months or even years your family won't have the assets they need. By default, accountings and inventories are required, and those take another 2 months each. And if anybody receiving under the will doesn't waive the requirement for accounting and inventory, you should add in another 6 months for things to get done. Probate's public. Because probate is a court process, all the records are filed, and it is public. Anybody can access all of the papers in the file case. Anybody can get to the inventory of the estate and know who is getting how much. Unless waived by everybody involved, an accounting and inventory of the estate is required at the beginning and at the ending. There's a mandatory 2-month advertisement and waiting period for each inventory that is done. It's public. Anybody that wants to can look at the estate's property and know what was in it and calculate how much each person is getting. No will, no trust, no problem. That's because the state has already decided where your stuff goes and how much they get to your heirs. If you're married, your spouse gets 1/3 of all your personal property and the money that you own just in your name. Your children or other legal heirs split the other 2/3. Your spouse gets a 1/3 life estate in your real estate. A life estate is not outright ownership. Your children or other heirs get the other 2/3 split evenly among them, subject to your spouse's life estate. If you're not married, your children or heirs split your estate evenly. You don't get a choice. You can't disinherit any of them. They get the money immediately if they are over 18. If they're under 18, the court will hold the money in trust, then at 18 give them a lump sum.